With the conclusion of Ahsoka, we felt it was a good time to gather our thoughts on the series, what we believe it represents as a lore shift in canon, and more importantly, what we believe it represents for the direction of the franchise. As you can already tell, this video will contain spoilers for the entirety of the first season of Ahsoka, so if you haven't finished the series yet, we highly recommend going to finish it before you continue watching. If you're all caught up, or just don't care, let's get right into it.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
In a previous video, we gathered all the recent Star Wars series and compared them in an effort to figure out what makes a Star Wars series great and what makes one terrible. In the original video, we got into far more detail when discussing our criteria for yay or nay, but we'll only give a brief summary here insofar as they apply to Ahsoka. In general, Ahsoka hit many of the tropes we believe make a series bad, and failed to hit most of the tropes we think makes a series good. Starting with the bad, Ahsoka could have been playing bingo with how many boxes it ticked. As we discussed in our original video, which could have alternatively been titled An Ode to Andor, the most egregious thing a new series can do is rely heavily on past Star Wars media. Some cameos here and there are fun, but when a series rehashes the same old stories and follows the same old characters, not only does it become impossible for newer fans who've not seen the 3 previous series to follow, but it also makes the Star Wars universe seem so much smaller. What draws in and inspires so many people is the sense of vastness and mystery. There are millions of planets with stories spanning hundreds of thousands of years. The possibilities are endless, so when a series kicks all that potential to the side and sticks to the same old faces, it fails to deliver that sense of wonder and discovery. Perhaps more than any recent series, Ahsoka is the guiltiest at this sort of fan service. Every single main character, from Ahsoka herself to the Ghost crew from Rebels, are recurring characters. There are only 2 original characters who have any amount of weight in the plot, and it's no coincidence that the internet is obsessed with them. Both Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati are new, interesting, and full of potential. Their motivations seem far more complex than a simple, "Ha, I'm an evil Sith, fear me," and the series only makes you wonder what their deal is more and more as it progresses. Compared to that, the motivations of the Ghost crew are predictable and overall linear. There are no unknown factors or surprises there, and while they tried to spice things up with introducing Jedi Padawan Sabine as a thing, it failed to make the impact we think the writers are hoping for. Hell, the best bits of world building was seeing Hera fighting with the incompetent New Republic Senate, and the new government's incompetence isn't exactly new if you've seen any other recent series. Overall, Ahsoka relies heavily on the presence of old, established characters looking to appeal to older fans who've been waiting half a decade for a sequel to Rebels. A more minor infraction is how Ahsoka plays into the trope of impermanent death. Granted, it isn't as egregious as in other series, but in only 8 shortish episodes, we had 2 characters almost die and survive in extremely implausible ways. First is, of course, Sabine, who walked off being impaled by a lightsaber like it was a paper cut. Then it was Ahsoka, who somehow didn't die despite being submerged and unconscious for seemingly hours. Neither example is a cardinal sin, but a series that doesn't treat death with proper respect makes the audience believe it won't treat other important topics seriously, which cheapens the weight of the overall story. We could have potentially looked past these sins if Ahsoka had brought something incredible to the table in terms of story and depth, but even then, Ahsoka sadly failed to deliver. You all probably agree with us that the most important thing for any show is the story. The most fundamental element in any series is a plot that feels complex and evolving. A story with characters who go through hardships, face their failings and losses, and grow, rising stronger and more resilient. A story with protagonists whose motivations motivate us as an audience to continue watching, waiting to see what will happen. Ahsoka, unfortunately, didn't really do that. The story itself could have been what we the fans needed. Thrawn is a beloved villain for a reason, and everyone was excited to see him return to the screen, even if some were unhappy about his characterization deviating from that of the novels. However, in our opinion, the way the overarching story was handled was rather lackluster. Anyone who's seen Rebels knows the entire point of the series before it even begins. Ahsoka and Sabine want to find Ezra and Thrawn, who've been transported into another galaxy. While there are certainly some good episodes, the series relies heavily on the conflict between Ahsoka and Sabine to fuel character development. The only issue with this is that in every series they've appeared in until now, the two barely had any relationship. During the time skip, they allegedly became Master and Padawan, and that led to some serious interpersonal conflict they're now trying to overcome. The problem with that is that their relationship and conflict was established off-screen. When fans had seen the last two, they were on the same side, but by no means close. Now, suddenly, not only do they have extensive history between them, but it's also based on a complete wildcard of an element, Sabine being Force-sensitive. This creates a sense of cognitive dissonance for the audience. It's difficult to go from one kind of established relationship to an entirely new one. This just makes it difficult for fans to feel emotionally invested in the interpersonal conflict. Their animosity comes across as more annoying than concerning, and any character growth that happens isn't celebrated. The other element Ahsoka is missing is a deeper meaning. Star Wars was always meant to be a deeply meaningful story. It was initially written as an allegory for the Vietnam War, but since then, it's gone on to comment on the state of democracy, on destiny and the subversion of our own fate, on loyalty, and on the concept of freedom. Any good Star Wars series isn't just a story. It means something. It has something at stake that resonates within all of us. Ahsoka doesn't. If we had to find something more meaningful that it addresses, it would be that it criticizes the incompetence of a complacent government, but it's not the main focus of the story, nor is it the first series to crap on the New Republic. Another angle is Sabine's loyalty and dedication to finding and rescuing her found family even after so many years. But with the botched interpersonal conflict we discussed above, it feels less meaningful and more like something someone very short-sighted and emotional would do. Finally, a good Star Wars series needs to have something to keep us going. Tension. We as an audience need to feel excited, tense, anxious, worried about the future of the characters and their goals. Once again, Ahsoka failed to deliver, but not as badly as it could have. After the first episode, each subsequent installment did a pretty good job at keeping the levels of tension even. That said, that's a bit of a problem. Overall, the series didn't create an air of uncertainty and concern. There was never any real fear that Ahsoka and Sabine wouldn't be able to make it to the faraway galaxy, nor did anyone ever believe Ahsoka was dead. The moments with the highest anticipation was seeing Anakin again and the Clone Wars flashbacks, literally scenes from a past, very popular show that were made possible thanks to a time-traveling Deus Ex Machina. Don't get us wrong, those scenes were amazing, but if the best scene of this series is in a character's head and based on memories from 20 years ago, you know there's a problem. Hell, even the season finale fails to create any real tension. Thrawn manages to return to the galaxy and Ahsoka and Sabine are left stranded in the middle of nowhere. But they're not even upset about it. Maybe it's the monumental weight of how absolutely screwed they are, but the characters themselves leave us with the message of, that's fine, it's the will of the Force. This is our life now. Let's move on. Putting aside how we're all convinced they'll be rescued in the first few episodes of the next season, this ending was supposed to be tragic. It was supposed to make us feel devastated. Instead, the characters themselves can't be bothered to be upset, so why should we? That said, Ahsoka wasn't a terrible series, despite how much we just spoke down on it. But it also isn't great. Fans of our channel will know that, typically, when a new series is released, we like to jump on the new content and make videos on new developments the same day a new episode is released. For Ahsoka, however, we deliberately chose not to do that for one specific reason. As a show, it's very enjoyable as a fan eager to see some beloved characters return, but as a storyteller, there just isn't a lot there to talk about. Each episode followed a linear, predictable storyline to the next, and while it was an enjoyable ride, there simply wasn't a lot of substance to it. Ahsoka didn't leave us with any questions. It didn't raise any thought-provoking questions or make us debate matters of morality. It was just a story, and when it was over, there was nothing left to really think about. The best words to describe it are probably fun but superficial, carried primarily by some top-rank fan service. With Thrawn returning to the galaxy in the epilogue, there's a good chance that the next season, or whichever future series will pick up the plot, will change that up and bring more to the table than fan service. Thrawn is an S-rank character, and the possibilities are endless. It's up to the writers to utilize him effectively. With all that said and done, there were a few things in Ahsoka that worked very well, even if they weren't enough to take the series from mediocre to great. Most of them focus on world building, but there's something much more interesting that Ahsoka teaches us about, even if the story doesn't go about it directly. If we're being entirely honest, saying Ahsoka failed to add meaningfully to the Star Wars world building just because it had few new characters is somewhat unfair. There were several new worlds we got to visit thanks to the series, with interesting new creatures, civilizations, and even some ancient history. More importantly, we got to avoid Tatooine entirely, which is a miracle in this day and age. Ahsoka focuses heavily on exploring these new corners of the galaxy, and it does a good job of taking us beyond what we're familiar with. Even the concept of other galaxies is something very seldom explored in Star Wars, the Rishi Maze and the Yuuzhan Vong aside. But in our opinion, Ahsoka's greatest world-building contribution wasn't in the form of these new locations and beings, but in the way it continues filling the blanks regarding the Jedi and their fate after Order 66 and the declaration of a new order. Many recent Star Wars media have depicted the plight of the Jedi and their efforts to adapt to a changed galactic reality. Series like Kenobi and The Mandalorian both showed Jedi living in hiding, being hunted, and Luke Skywalker's efforts to rebuild. Games like Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survival depict a Jedi doing his best to fight the tyranny of the Empire while struggling with his incomplete training. Ahsoka, as an unofficial sequel to Rebels, picks up from there and continues adding to the tapestry of the new Jedi reality. Through the series, we begin to get a better picture of what the Jedi are evolving to be now that the Empire is defeated. Now that the Empire is defeated and the New Republic has things under control. Allegedly. Unsurprisingly, the character that provides most of this new information comes from Baylan Skoll, a former Jedi presumed dead during the Clone Wars. From him, we get the terms Ronin and Bokken Jedi, which might seem familiar to those who've seen Star Wars Visions. Ahsoka brings both into canon. For anyone who isn't familiar with the term, a Bokken is a wooden sword used in traditional Japanese martial arts. In Kendo, it's the main weapon, whereas in other sports, it's seen as a training blade used before one would progress to a real metal sword. With that in mind, it isn't difficult to get at what Skoll means. After Order 66, a handful of Jedi managed to survive and keep to the shadows. Over the years, some of these Jedi found new apprentices whom they began training in the Jedi ways. That was the case with Ezra Bridger and Kanan Jarrus, or with Baylan himself and Shin. However, with the Empire maintaining draconian controls over the supply of kyber crystals, these new Jedi weren't able to simply go to Ilum and get a crystal for their lightsaber. An entire generation of new Padawan were raised without the Jedi's iconic weapon, doing their best to rebuild with what they had. The other new term added to canon, Ronin, is another Japanese term. In the older days, Ronin referred to a samurai who was a wandering sword, unaffiliated with any lord. There was also an element of dishonor attached to the term, as samurai were supposed to serve a lord, and being without a master meant they served no higher purpose. In a way, Skoll referring to Ahsoka as a Ronin makes perfect sense. She is an unaffiliated former Jedi, morally aligned with the light, but not connected to the New Republic, like Hera is. She's free to travel the galaxy and do her own thing. This was certainly one way the Jedi continued to exist after the fall of the Republic, doing what they could to help the galaxy without attaching themselves to any specific power. Any Jedi who survived Order 66 undoubtedly came to realize how their close association with the Republic was what led the Jedi off their path. Add to that the very real fear of persecution if they were ever found out, and you get the broader picture. Many Jedi led a nomadic life, moving from place to place, even after the New Republic was established. Associating too closely with them could have led to the same issues the Jedi faced during the Clone Wars, so many avoided them. Baylan's skull, on the other hand, represents the other end of the spectrum. Anyone who's seen the series would argue he's not a Darksider. We want to believe this isn't Disney's attempt at making the Grey Jedi canon, but it's a distinct possibility at this point. Regardless, Skull was a former Jedi who stepped away after the Clone Wars and has now affiliated himself with the Imperial Remnant. Anyone who observes his words and actions can tell he isn't evil, but he sees the Remnant as something he can use to accomplish his own goals, whatever they might be. That has to have been the case for many Jedi just trying to survive. Some became bounty hunters, others security for different figures or warlords. In a galaxy as vast and filled with enemies as the post-Clone Wars one, a single Jedi couldn't do much alone, so finding an entity to belong to was a way of protecting themselves. And then there's Luke. Despite not seeing him in Ahsoka, other series have given us a glimpse of his canon efforts during this time. Around 9 ABY, he was building his Jedi Academy on Ossus and dabbling with taking on his first student, Grogu. We also know that Ahsoka has visited with him and is aware of his efforts, even if she hasn't seemed to want to contribute directly to the Academy. All of this serves a purpose. We've talked before about how Disney is likely building up the timeline between Episode 6 and Episode 7 to create a rational and canon transition from the triumphant Battle of Endor to the triumph of the First Order and the return of an Imperial tyranny. When watching Episode 7, many weren't convinced that the New Republic would have been so weak as to fall in a matter of decades, especially not with so many heroic figures still around to defend it. Simultaneously, Disney has found great success with the MCU. Most likely, they're hoping to find similar success with what many are now calling the Mandoverse, a number of canon series set around the same time, with characters interacting across multiple different series. It isn't just Disney doing it either. DC Comics have been doing it for years. Not only is it popular, but it also forces fans to consume more content in order to stay up to date. We mentioned how Ahsoka is essentially a sequel to Rebels, a show many fans had found difficult to enjoy at the time. Without it, it's almost impossible to enjoy Ahsoka. To understand both better, it's critical to also watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars. While we wholeheartedly love all of these shows, we find it problematic when seeing them as mandatory in order to understand future series. With that, we're back to our original point. Ahsoka is over-reliant on past Star Wars media to truly count among the greats like Andor. From a storyteller perspective, there isn't much to analyze. From a long-time fan perspective, however, it was a wonderful show to sit through, and we were thrilled to see many old favorites return to the screen. What does this mean for the future? It's difficult to tell. Part of us expects the plot to be picked up in a completely different series featuring Thrawn's return to the galaxy. Another part of us believes we'll see more of this in the next season of The Mandalorian, or, force forbid, The Book of Boba Fett, Season 2. We're just hoping they leave Tatooine out of it. But what do you think? Do you agree with our sentiments on Ahsoka? Despite the hype, it was surprisingly unpopular with many fans. How did you like the series overall, and would you be excited to see a Season 2 announced in the future? We're looking forward to seeing your input in the comment section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.